Okay. Are we good, Jody? Wonderful. Okay. Well, we'd like to welcome everybody to the work session of City Council today. The mayor is with us online. He was stuck up north unintentionally. Is that a good way of saying it there, Mayor?
Yeah, we're here to stay, I guess. We've enjoyed our long haul at the courtyard in Kirkland, and I don't know when we get to come home, but yeah, so that's a good way of putting it.
Well, when you're
And
able to
thanks
come,
for taking care of this.
not a problem. Councilmember Lunt is stuck in traffic. We'll get here hopefully as soon as she can. So we're just going to start with the public hearing, the tentative budget for 2026 fiscal year. Chris?
Let's see, I don't have anything more to present them. Whoop, can you hear me okay?
Hearing you.
I don't have anything more to present than what we did before. Is there any public comment?
Perfect. Please.
Sadly, my question for Chris and the city council, I guess, is or my public comment, because our Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant did not get approved. Sadly so. I'm trying to find out why. There's $26,000 in the budget for 2025-26. Can that automatically roll over into the next year, because hopefully we'll reapply in March of 2026? Or do I have to get city council approval and start the whole process all over again?
When you say 26,000, you're talking about the 25 that we approved
Match.
for the match for the pickleball court.
Correct. The grant did not
It'll
get approved.
it'll have to get reapproved.
I think the resolution
What do you mean reapproved?
stipulated,
Oh, this year?
yes, the grant.
Okay.
If we got the grant, it was there. If not, it reverted back to the general fund. Is that how you interpreted that, Chris?
Correct. There are a couple things, but that's the way that it was written up. But so yeah, just be reauthorized next year. When would you apply for it again? The same time, about the early spring, late winter?
Yeah, deadline is usually March 15th.
Okay.
We don't hear until May.
Yeah, the council could reauthorize it at that point.
Okay. Just to let you know, you don't need that in the budget.
Oh, well, that is a sad one. Thank you, though, for letting us know. Is there anybody else? Okay, then we will move on to number 2 with Wayne. Proposed ordinance 2025-22, amending portions of the city code 10.18.1, accessory dwelling units.
We held a public hearing on this Wednesday night, the Planning Commission, and I don't think we got any, I wasn't there, but I don't think we got any input from it. You listened to it, right?
Nobody had any input.
Okay. They had a discussion afterwards with it, and with the first item of the accessory dwellings, our ordinance read internal. And since then, state code allows external accessory dwellings. So we changed, that's the change to that ordinance. Whether they're internal or external, it can be accessory buildings. So that's the change with that one. And the second one was the having to do with gates on driveways. We've had a
Wayne,
couple, I'm
just
sorry.
before you go on, I wanted to know, so you're changing the wording to internal or external. Could anyone have both at the same time, an internal and an external?
They're only allowed one.
Okay,
according to
just
the
wanted to make
ordinance.
sure that was clear.
Okay, thank you. The next ordinance change has to do with driveway gates. We've had several individuals express some interest in having one, and we don't have any existing ordinance. The closest that we come to it is part of the wildland fire ordinance, which says that the driveway has to be unobstructed by, it did say 10, and that's been changed to 12 feet wide and 13 and a half feet tall. So that's the closest thing, and it can be interpreted a number of ways. Unobstructed could mean there is a gate or there isn't a gate. So what we've put together here is an allowance for a gate with the following criteria that you found in your packet. Now, it's quite extensive, but there's purpose behind each one of those standards. The Planning Commission, after some discussion, decided to add to number 6 on that list that the city may test the gate after it's been repaired to make sure that it functions properly and opens with a yelp siren. So there's a may in there, may or may not.
There was before, so we took out the manual, they took out the manually, and it said once yearly, so we had at least once yearly put in.
Yes.
So,
This has to do with the repaired gate.
Once it's been repaired.
yeah, that was in
it has
6,
to be
yeah.
tested.
Then we want to be able to check it.
Yes,
We want to
correct.
do that.
Yep.
So that was the only change, suggested change to that particular ordinance with all the standards and criteria that would go along with having a gate on a driveway. Do you have any questions about any of those particular items? We've put our heads together and tried to think of what do we need to have there, and I think we came up with a pretty complete list, but it's not infallible, and so anyway, that's what you'll be voting on. Now, there's a possibility that you may not want gates, and that's up to you and how you vote. But if we do have them, that would be the criteria that we would suggest incorporating into a gate allowance throughout the city. I've
And
talked-
this is just the gates for individual homeowners on their driveway,
Correct.
which we have a few, right?
We do have a couple, at least one wasn't approved. They went
Yes.
ahead and did it. For your information too, I've reviewed this with our fire chief and he's fine with it, feels that the fire department can live with it if the city wants to go ahead with it. Now, for your information, I think you likely already know this. Summit Creek is going to be gating part of their community over there. So I don't know how they're going to feel if residents behind the gate want to put still their own gate on their own property. But that's private property over there. So we may give some direction to the construction of it, but whether they do or not is going to be up to them.
Yeah, they'd probably deal with that in their
In their
HOA.
That's
HOA,
what I would say.
CC&Rs. Yeah.
HOA.
So those are the only two changes that we're recommending and that you'll be voting on tonight. It can be, but not taller than the maximum fence height, 6 feet.
6 feet. So
Okay.
you could have a decorative type of gate.
So you can have a decorative on the side and a taller gate in the middle.
Yeah,
Correct.
they're not really security because they're openable by anybody with a pin or something like that. They're
Mhm.
not meant for security. We actually talked about there's part in here where there's they may be assessed a $500 fine for a non-working gate, and if someone chained their gate closed so it couldn't be opened, they could be fined for that
And-
because it has to be able to be open.
So what if, I mean, it has to open to the property, and what happens if there's an issue and they haven't done off their yard or whatever, and they get an emergency call? I mean, is there some sort of something in place that we're not then liable, or if we can't even get to their property or to their call, emergency call?
Yes,
Yes.
there's a,
Section 10 actually says any liability caused by a malfunctioning gate is
Oh,
the
yeah,
sole
number 10.
responsibility of the property owner.
Yeah. Okay, so that meant for anything.
Correct.
Okay, I was just thinking of it as a maintenance issue. I wasn't
So, I
thinking
mean,
of
with,
it as
with the
a,
fire department, if the house is on fire, we're gonna get the gate open.
right,
It's gonna come open one way or another.
you're just gonna bash it in.
But ambulance, maybe not. So we
Right.
still want that Yelp, and we need to be able to unlock the gate manually.
Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking with Yelp. Okay, it can go, but if there's a lot of snow and they haven't gotten out, and so it won't open, right? Because there's too much snow packed in front of it.
we had some instances,
Yeah.
Yep.
and we had a couple of incidences on Aspen Drive where when it was built and the gates were there, they tested them and they didn't work properly. So they've left that open ever since. They haven't repaired it yet,
Yeah.
but plan on doing that.
And the 19 feet from the street was, I know, is that, that's the distance to get the fire truck or whatever?
Yeah, it's one,
off the
one and a
road,
half
but-
car, I believe it's 1.5
It's a
car lengths.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
That's
allows
why I
us
was
to
wondering
get
about the
not
there
blocking
if we had, if
Yeah.
it didn't open, we could actually get out and get
Yeah,
it open.
I was thinking, okay, that's like the ambulance or a fire
Yep.
vehicle could be.
It was
off.
about 17 feet is what we talked about.
keep in mind too,
They've got 19 on this.
Yeah, it says 19.
that there's not only fire danger to the resident where the gate is, but to the residents on the side as well.
Yeah,
So all that needs to be taken into consideration in the process. And the firefighters may not be able to fight the fire from the residence where it's on fire. They would need to go to an adjoining residence or however that works to pull the line across and things like that. So
so you brought up the Summit Creek and their HOA. We know we have other HOAs throughout the city that may or may not be functioning. Would this also fall under them before it falls on us, or would the rest of it be just fine to have one?
yes, I'm not aware of gate requirements with other HOAs.
Okay,
So basically, it's a city ordinance that, and if the HOA came together and voted for it, like Four Seasons,
mhm,
and wanted to have gates down there, they could.
They just have to meet our minimum
Correct.
requirements.
right, okay, just making sure. We said that.
Wayne, on number 7 here, the gate design must allow or the gate to automatically open or stay open if there is a power failure at the property.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm not aware. I don't have a ton of experience with gates. Is this a standard manufactured option?
As I
Or-
understand it, it is.
Okay,
Can
perfect,
be incorporated into that.
wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Are we having a lot of
Perfect.
people requesting gates, or is it just one or two, or, I
One
mean,
or
what's
two.
the need for it? So,
One or two.
okay,
And maybe others haven't requested it because they see our ordinance and think, well, I can't have one. So,
Hmm. I don't know, it
Yeah.
seems like if they wanted it, they would come for it, but they probably haven't thought of it yet, but we might get
So,
more.
but
once they
in an
see it.
ornamental gate, I mean, if that's really what you're looking for, which I could see some of our houses wanting that ornamental gate, they would be limited with our current, I mean, even if you looked at it, it would be 4 feet. So having the ability to go to a 6-foot ornamental top might be more conducive to people wanting to do that.
and we didn't want to play catch up with budget right now. People can put gates up. And do we want to control that one way or the other? And if we do want to control it, then here's a standard that we have for gates.
Well, I appreciate the protections you've built into this ordinance seem, to fall mostly on safety, right? Make sure we can
Yeah.
still keep our
They're
residents safe,
purposeful,
which I
they're not
appreciate.
just willy-nilly and, oh, this
I
would be fine.
appreciate the thought you've put behind these. Thank you.
So,
Well, and some of these also come from Wildland Urban Interface Code. So some of those requirements, you're looking at a gate when we look at the way to access them, when the power failure and stuff like that. It's part of what our Wildland Interface Code requires as well.
Wonderful.
Wayne, is
Thank
there,
you.
is there something around this code that requires a permit to be issued, to be applied for a gate? to be
yes, there would
constructed?
be a building permit that would be
Okay.
issued for that
All right.
gate.
Okay. I don't see it in this
Separate
part.
from the fence, or could it be in part of the fence permit?
It could be part of the
Okay.
fence, but if, it could be by itself as well.
Sure.
We recently approved Summit Creek to put in a gate across one of their private roads.
Okay,
So they gave us a design of it,
okay.
criteria, and this would be applied to any gate across the road. I should say, not only just driveway, but
Okay,
a gate in the city.
thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, number 4, update on employee health insurance. Is this you, Chris?
Yes, I sent a little message a little while ago regarding health insurance and some of the challenges that I'm personally facing just because of my proximity and where I'm currently living, and would ask the council mayor to consider reimbursing me for the portion that the city currently pays right now so I can go obtain my own health insurance.
And let me jump in here too. Chris talked to me about this. I don't believe this requires specific council approval. I wanted to get it on the agenda just to make sure that we have full transparency. But the way I see it, I mean, and Chris, I do think that your recommendation that you provide proof of purchase is a good call, and I think that we should do that. We don't want to just hand out checks, but I think that if the insurance is not working, I think that we should make what accommodation we can, and since there's no added expense, it seems to me that it's an administrative decision, but I did want the council to be apprised of it.
So I just want to know personally, clarity-wise, so this is no more dollars expenditure from what the council approved, correct?
For me personally, it'll cost a little bit more out of pocket, but there will be no additional cost to the city. That I think it's $1,872.44 is what the city pays for each employee's health right now today, and that's all I would ask for.
We
I
need
think my new rate would be $19.65.
Okay, do we need to make any amendments allowing that?
Sound like it.
Can I ask a question? Does this pertain to any of our employees or just to Chris?
Yeah, does this set up precedent that everyone else can ask for the money as well and go find their own insurance? That's a
I
question.
mean, it might, but Chris's situation is somewhat unique in that he is working remotely. So, I mean, was it, I don't know if it was you, Brian, or you, Doral, that asked if we need to amend the resolution. And that actually would be something we want to look at, because I don't know how specific it is, because it might be something limited. But I mean, even if it does set a precedent, I don't know why it would be problematic, in the sense that if the city approves a certain amount, if it's not a working solution, I just don't see what the cost would be. And if I'm missing something, let me know, but I don't see a cost to it.
Is that how some other cities do it? I think that is what we found out when we were researching everything on the finance committee, that some cities just give so much to their employees and let them go apply it to their own insurance.
I don't see I really don't see a problem with that. Especially if they're turning in their receipts saying, okay, I've actually paid for this, and looking for a reimbursement type of thing. I don't see where it hurts the city at all. And it gives the employees more flexibility.
If it's not hitting the taxpayer in any different way, I don't have an issue with it personally.
And I would also say that my bigger concern would be, and Chris, this will have to be something you tackle, but now that we're outside of open enrollment, I mean, I do want to make sure that the city is not subject to any sort of damages contractually under our current plan by you pulling out. That would be the one thing I think that we do want to get assurances on.
Okay, I'll double check the PHP.
Okay. Anything else?
Just, Chris already knows what my concerns were. I just don't want it to cost the taxpayers more because Chris has moved
Agreed. 100%.
where he lives now. So that's my number one, I guess, watchdog item.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's consistent for every employee.
Agreed.
Be my question then. So if Ted or Toby find that the doctors that they have been going to, and now PHP does not have those doctors? Is that an option for them too? And if so, then we probably need to look at rewriting our employee handbook and the insurance portion, because that's not exactly what's stated there. But I guess that's,
And I think our resolution was pretty specific, and so we would need to probably redo the.
so do we allow
resolution
them to take the
allow.
same amount of money and be able to go get their own insurance then? So that they can maybe stay with the same doctors they've been used to. Also, we pre-fronted $3,000 in an HSA. What if it's not an HSA insurance?
Yeah, is Chris, I'm assuming yours is an HSA. I believe you said that.
It was in his email.
Yeah.
About 3,000 or $300 more a year in HSA, not a big deal, but
Yeah, I think we will need to look at, those resolutions, see if that verbiage needs to be amended. Chris, like the mayor asked, make sure that there's no penalty for a withdrawal. If there is a withdrawal, I would assume you'd probably speak with the mayor and negotiate what that would look like. And okay, anything else from anybody else? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, department updates. Ted, we'll let you have A and B. If you're not asking for money, you can stay back there, but if you are, you're going to need to come up here.
Well, never mind. I won't say what I was going to say. So I did have something to say. Uh-oh.
I just had to. I had to.
My search engine.
Excuse me.
So
Excuse me.
I did find one that is only about $50,000. It's only a single seater, but it's only $50,000. It's called like the Wasp or the
He'd
Bee
want to
or
be
something.
on the water.
I don't think a $50,000 helicopter will actually fly. I don't either.
Yeah, I watched videos of it. Yeah, it's called a Wasp or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Look it up. It's only 50 grand.
I think you have to be on quite the diet.
It just get me from here to the house and around, a few meetings, whatever.
Ted, you're going to need a couple more wildland crews to pay for that.
Well, I heard just half of it. Well, never mind. I won't say it.
We're going to start paying for Janet's health insurance now, too.
Oh my gosh.
So, only a couple things on the public works side. The Maple Canyon well, they've got it completed and it's now going through some testing, some pump testing and water quality testing, some things like that. So hopefully within the next few days here, it'll be working and running again, which then allows us to finish up our well project. I think they had some valves that got delayed on that project. So June 7th, I think their valve actuators are supposed to be here. It's some electric actuators we have on a couple valves. So timing worked out okay. So hopefully the well project kicks back up here again and we can finish that one up. The pavement preservation project that we have planned for the summer got kicked to August. So it'll be towards the end of August before we're able to do that work. I don't know the whys. They just said due to our scheduling conflicts, we're not going to be able to make it till August. Timing wise, it probably is going to be okay. I mean, a little later than I hope, but we've still got Comcast working on all those streets, and I really don't want to do the microsill while they're working. And so I think at least a month we would have to push them back at best anyway. So
Well, did you hear that the Comcast thing was because of Three Bridges?
yeah. I talked about that actually with the Comcast project manager, and he assured me he didn't know what Three Bridges was when I brought it up. And he assured me they've had no discussions with Three Bridges, but
I know. I think it's funny.
It just, yeah.
So, well,
he said they'd love to, but they haven't had any discussions about it. And in
Yeah.
fact, when I said Three Bridges, he didn't even know what it was when I mentioned the name. Now he's probably project manager over project guy, not a top sales guy. So.
I do think we have to be careful with the discussion with Three Bridges publicly. The developer is possibly pursuing some legal action against some members of Salem City leadership that have been bad mouthing Three Bridges. So just kind of a warning to all of us, a warning shot to be careful what's said in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe it's time to have the developer come back and give us an update on what they're doing, just because I think if we can have, not every time, but once a quarter, an update from him, then we can direct our citizens to those minutes and to that discussion. Because that's the only public meetings we are holding with them, and we need to let them know that we're open to listening, but we also know that that's not our city that's dealing, that this development isn't there. But if we can get some updates, they can go to our minutes to look to what they've been telling us as a city.
There have been no updates. And we can't stop rumors from churning in a rumor mill, but there haven't been any updates. At least maybe, Ted, there's been something on the public works side, but there's been no outreach to me.
No, but what I was saying,
No.
Mayor, I was saying maybe we should invite them like once a quarter just to come in to council meeting and give us an update. We don't need to wait for them to ask, just us ask them to come. And whether it's, it might only be a 5-minute thing where they say, this is what we're doing. We say, great. But at least we've
Yeah.
gotten.
I have no objection to that. I expect that until there's some development with respect to our city, that's exactly what those updates will be. But to the extent that we're looking to tamp down accusations that are being made, I think in bad faith by certain people, I don't think that will have any impact on that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I did get a call from them about a week and a half ago. Mainly they talked about just wanting to set up a time, just come and talk to us again and just kind of go through some of the things we've been talking about. They don't really have any changes in what they're doing in the development. They're just building the development is really what they're doing. I think they've had some things going on with Salem that were, probably outside of our purview. But what I've talked to a few residents about this who have had lots of questions, and I just tell them at the time when it's appropriate to give an update, we'll probably give an update. The problem right now is that if we start giving out information, it's kind of one of those that, because we've had discussions that are very just kind of high level pie in the sky stuff. And so they're asking, why aren't we sharing that? The challenge is if that stuff doesn't happen, then we get questioned on the other side, so so what I've been telling them is when we have some good information, then we'll start sharing. But right now there's just no information that is solid that we can say this is kind of the plan or what we've been talking about. Because if we start giving out, like I said, some bad information or start saying things that they've been talking about, and then that never happens, and residents get upset about that. So I think we're a little just still early in the game for us, but I think they will. They're willing to work with us. I think they'll come and give us updates when we want them and stuff like that. They've been very responsive. I know they're still working on some issues with Salem right now, so it's kind of been their focus.
Well, and I think if anybody is questioning what's been discussed and what Ted said, that high level, the last time Larry was here in city council, he went over everything we've been discussing
Yeah.
at high level. So
And there's
those
nothing
decisions-
changed since that discussion he had at our last council meeting.
So if anybody's interested, they can look back to those
I
minutes.
think it was October of 24.
Something like that, yeah. It's all there in our meeting. So,
Yeah.
perfect.
Um,
Fire?
So one other item on Public Works, we've been talking about possibly doing some mitigation work, flood mitigation work down in the Summit Creek area. I've been having our engineers just put together kind of a scope and cost. As you might remember, we had that flood study done through some FEMA funding, which that program's done away with now. So that was one of them Doge did away with. So I'm glad we got it done just in time. But we did that flood study. Out of that came a number of things. One of those was to address some flooding that's been happening in Elk Ridge because of what comes out of our city. And there was some stuff that was brought out in the report, some improvements we can do that I think are fairly easy to tackle and would help Elk Ridge feel better. And so I'm having our engineers put together just kind of a scope and a fee. I'll get with the mayor about that to do these improvements in that basin down in Summit Creek. And there's many more, but we'll tackle those. I think this is the hanging fruit we can tackle fairly quickly. So, the fire side, our fire crew, full-time fire crew came on this week. Actually last week. They started full-time last week, and they've just been going through training, doing some mitigation work, a few things like that. Our brush 192 is supposed to be done tomorrow morning or tomorrow by noon-ish, be fixed, so we'll have it back.
For a minute.
Yeah, for a minute.
And will you go back on the list? Will you go back?
Yeah, so we get the brush truck back, and then we got to finish the training with the 3 guys. That should wrap up next week, get their red cards, and then we go available. So that's hopefully going to be happening here in the next week.
So is it Lance +2 or Lance +3?
2.5. Lance plus 2.5. So we got 2 full-time guys, and we got a part-time guy who is actually right now he's kind of working kind of full-time because they're getting their red card training done. And then the thought is when they're in the city that he'll kind of be a part-time and then also a backup in case something happens to one of our other guys. We've got someone to replace him. Because that kind of set us back last year when we lost one of our guys, Dustin. We ended up being set back on because of that. So this will help kind of solve that issue. And I did call the state and confirm with the state that if they get called on a fire, we can send 4, so they can all go on a fire and work, get paid. So going great. Chipper, you can see they've been out there chipping. We've been keeping them really busy. A lot out there. They tell me they're going to have it done by the end of the week.
They're moving along
They
pretty
are.
good.
They're
Going pretty quick. I mean, most of it's been at the bottom of the town, so that's why I think some people up the top of town aren't seeing as much right now. But down the bottom of town, they've been working on a lot down there. They did Spring today, which was one of the big roads that had a lot on it.
It had a lot. I think Spring and Broad Hollow were a couple of the roads that
Yeah,
didn't
those are
get
the
done
two.
in the fall. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of extra.
Oaks had quite a bit. Aspen Circle had quite a bit. There was a number of places that had stacked up pretty good. Sky Lake was pretty good. So we've had a lot out for him. They've kept busy, and he can't promise me, but if for some reason they're not able to get through it all by the end of the week, he'll try and get a crew back next week, just one crew to help finish it up. So
Wonderful.
Would you mention the burn permit issued at the relief mine just for public knowledge?
yeah. Well, so the burn permit actually went through the county, and then because it was in a Salem response area, it was actually Salem that notified me about it. We had a property owner up by the Dream Mine that was doing some slash pile burning up there, and so they did get a burn permit from the county, and then they notified all the surrounding agencies, us, Salem, Utah County Fire, that this was going to happen, and they had held them to the very strict requirements of the burn permit, meaning if there's windy conditions they can't burn, or stuff like that. So. But it went off. I guess I never heard anything. I think the surrounding agencies are being very proactive and helping us out up here. I got another text I didn't send you guys about the next day. A homeowner just down in Salem below the roundabout was also during a burn. And I got a text from him the next day saying, FYI, I'm going to be burning. I have a permit and everything like that. So he sent me his address. So if we got a call out, I could, know that it's a burn permit area. And then when he got all done, he texted me and said, hey, we're all finished with the burn. And luckily we never had a call during it. We did get one over in Elk Ridge for a burn permit.
2.
2, it was the same place. Just got called by 2 different people. One was a neighbor that was mad at him for doing it. But
I think because I went on the Spanish Fork River Trail on Friday night. Anyway, and I think I saw the resident down there that was burning.
yeah.
Somebody had some big piles they were burning down.
So been very proactive about keeping us informed.
Okay. So Ted, back on Public Works, is the sweeper functioning?
Sweeper is functioning.
So Craig had called me and told me he was bringing it up, so I let everybody know that we now have a sweeper on a
Yep.
loader.
It is sitting right down here. Craig brought it up. They got it functioning, and as soon as we probably get done, I hate to send them out right now with all the chipping going on, but
After the chipping, it'd be nice to clear off some.
yeah,
of
we
that
may go out and do
that's
some
left
sweeping,
over
stuff like
and
that.
do some
It's a vacuum style sweeper, so it just doesn't brush the dirt off the side of the road because the state doesn't allow that anymore. We actually have to sweep it and vacuum it up, and so we have to then go dump it somewhere. So it'll fill a hopper that we have to go dump.
Where are you dumping it?
That's a good question. We haven't got
By the
that.
salt shed.
It'll probably be something like the salt shed. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a nice-
yeah. I don't suspect it's a lot because it's mostly dust and some small stuff you're pulling up. But
Just put it up on by the tank so it can blow off on the rest
Yeah,
of the city.
blow up on the whole city.
it's just a long,
That's right by me.
Put it by Janet's
It's right
house.
above me. It'll just blow down into my window.
it's just a long drive to go from sweeping the top of the city all the way to the salt shed, dump it, and back up again. But
Yeah.
we'll see if we can work something out.
Oh, one of the trucks. Take the,
I thought about that. Take
Yeah.
the salt bed out.
that's what they're there for.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Wayne. Code and zoning enforcement.
As Ted's talking, I'm thinking he's probably already submitted his letter for the newsletter, but now I think maybe it'd be a good opportunity to have its own little thing suggesting the people to put in their hours for all the work that they've done in the yards for the chipping.
Just for the record, I do not have a TED Talk yet. I have a
Oh.
Wayne's World, but I don't have a TED Talk.
got it written. I just haven't emailed. I was just reading it as you guys were talking.
Okay.
Just rereading, make sure it's okay. It's ready.
But if he doesn't have that in there, I think it would be good to maybe have something by itself to remind people to do that. Have they got it?
We also do it on Facebook.
I bet Jody can send it to me.
And then whenever people tell me to talk to me, I stop for hours.
Because we always need any information that, it's good to have anything that we have in there.
Yeah.
Newsletter, Facebook, and all of this. We've done it 3 times. Never hurts to keep.
Everybody seems happy with their neighbor, so no code complaints recently,
Whoa.
but
It's spring.
things are fine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good report. Okay. Sure.
In terms of code enforcement or ordinances or whatever, I'm with Ted. I'm looking to buy a helicopter. What are we doing with the helicopter that's flying over the city? Because it flew again this weekend.
I think that's the flight school out of Spanish Fork. They're just flying around.
We have a city resident who we understand owns a helicopter.
Oh,
But right now, the only restrictions are with FAA, with filing a flight plan and so forth. The city doesn't have anything to do to regulate that. And we haven't looked into it, but I think it's questionable that we could put some limitations on it, but we have not pursued that.
so
It's like
limitations
oh, sorry.
on limitations because do they have a helipad at their home or they just fly over because we don't.
It's
really
their
have
driveway, and
airspace.
we've talked to them about land and not landing there anymore.
Right. So,
And-
so we don't get to control our airspace.
Right.
But we could ask and find out what some of the other restrictions might be.
So it's like a drone, right? You fly so high and you no longer have the space. So I don't think we can control them flying over the city as long as they're up at a certain elevation. That's airspace and regular FFA. But well, drones have to get licensed to fly as well, and they have to stay below a certain elevation.
Drones are 400 feet.
Yeah.
So if a helicopter's flying at 400 feet,
They're already in trouble.
they're in violation of the FAA most likely.
Yeah, because I'd asked, well, short story, where this came in is I had a drone that flew into my yard and lowered down and was looking in our bedroom window.
There is one of those in the community. We've had the same experience.
Yeah, and so I started quizzing about where drones can fly. Can they fly over private property and that? And they can at a certain elevation, because you don't own the airspace at a certain elevation above your house or any property. But I think Wayne went and talked to the property owner about not landing his helicopter because it's not been officially a helipad. It's his driveway. And he's agreed not to land it there.
And maybe that's where the ordinance needs to be, that if you're going to have a helipad, it has to go through city approval or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. It's not like, I mean, we land helicopters here occasionally with life flight and stuff like that. During the fire, that park was designated a landing zone for the fire crews, but until some process happens, I think, talk to him about not landing that one here anymore.
I guess it's a difference between an emergency chopper versus just a private one, and what would be the differences there. And maybe we look at other cities on what they do.
Yeah. We're going to have to if we're getting my helicopter.
I'm not worried about that.
You're just trying to make me run again, aren't you?
Yeah.
So that I can make sure you
Yeah.
don't buy that thing.
Oh, I've got a helicopter. I've got now a little small airplane for our fire department that we're going to get.
Yeah, yeah. I see what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, the big grabber thing that has all the big claws on it, grab stuff. Oh, I got all kinds of
Yeah.
plans if you leave.
Okay, perfect.
And Jody did send that to me already. So good job, Wayne. Good job, Jody.
Okay.
In kind.
Number 6, reports. We'll start with you, Mayor, if you've got anything, and if you're still with us. There you are.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't have anything other than the insurance discussion that we had. So, and I have been on my extended vacation, so I haven't been in a couple of weeks. But as far as I know, nothing new to report.
Wonderful. I just want to know, is Monica there waiting to go get that chicken sandwich?
Yeah. The good news is that we are traveling together, and we're getting a little extra time with my daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter. So there's definitely a silver lining. But yeah, chicken sandwiches are they're what is it? I don't know how many miles we are from home, but 500 or 600 miles is not going to be a barrier to a chicken sandwich. That's for sure.
Definitely more than 600 miles from home.
Next time. Okay, myself, Emergency Management Department, I actually had a business meeting today that went long, and so I wasn't able to go to the meeting. And so can I turn it over to you, Carrie?
Sure.
Report on that?
Had a very good discussion today, kind of a recap of some of the efforts that Utah did in the hurricanes in the east in the fall. Helene and Milton, and the response teams that went from Utah there, and lessons learned, kind of equating it back to although we wouldn't have a hurricane, we would probably be more likely to have an earthquake that would have a lot of the same similarities with regards to infrastructure being damaged and what do we do, and where, different types of things. They had hospital give an update on what the hospitals would be doing, the network nationally, and what would come in. And so it was very good. It was a very good discussion.
Wonderful. And the only thing I had to contribute, I hear, because they're in the new emergency management
It's
building,
amazing.
and the AC was today, so apparently it was toasty. So I didn't feel like bad. I missed that. Councilmember Hutchings.
So we haven't had a Public Works Committee meeting, so we don't have anything to report there. Park Trails and Rec, I want to say how much I appreciate everybody for listening to the Dark Skies. Unfortunately, we did not make the grant for the pickleball court this year. We're going to keep trying. I have had a quick discussion with the ombudsman. They're doing some research and going to get back to me. So I haven't heard anything back from them. Done a little bit of research, still working on some research to try to put things together with Dark Skies and what their requirements are. So there's still a bit to do. it just is taking time. My work has been tremendous, so I've been a little bit out of it. And Planning Commission, Wayne, went through everything there that we went through this last meeting, and really good discussions. And I do appreciate all of our committees that I sit on as their liaison, because they do put in a lot of effort to these.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kinnison.
Couple of really cool things to announce. Salem EMS held a recognition dinner, and our team was invited down there. Wanted to announce that Alan Wakefield, who's an officer in our department, he received a Service Achievement Recognition Award for 48 years of EMS service.
Wow.
So he's been at it for a while. That's a well-deserved award he got. And our own Ted Mickelson received the award of EMT of the Year. So way to go, Ted. He never, well, almost never misses a call. So when that pager goes off, you can usually depend on
And the prize is a new helicopter.
And I'm on board with that. Maybe just a point of clarification. This is a dinner that's put on by Mountain View Hospital for Payson, Salem, all the communities
cool.
that go to Mountain View.
So it's wider than just Salem.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Salem, Payson,
Very cool.
Elk Ridge,
Santaquin.
Santaquin.
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty neat. We have some amazing members. So, and that's all I have to report on.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Nice.
Councilmember Lunt.
Okay, so Finance Committee, we haven't met. Communication team, just trying to get stuff together for the newsletter. My son's graduating on Thursday, and I'm burning the candle at both ends this week, so I'm a little red-eyed, but it's okay. But I really need, if you haven't submitted your stuff, I needed it yesterday. So, and then events and volunteers, we met Friday night. It was the only time everybody could meet. I was like, that's Memorial Weekend, right? But I met with the new committee people for Woodland Hills Days and the old ones, and we kind of went through everything. So I think it's going to be really good. It's really nice to have kind of the format now because they are not letting me do much of anything. So they kept saying no, like when I tried to do, volunteer for something that I had done in the past, and they said, nope, we're doing that. So anyway, so that's really good. So less on my shoulders. So I like that. So everything's going good. The history project is coming along. Maybe Jody, if anybody, we're kind of looking for ideas because it's the 25 years of it being a city. You're wondering if we had like something, one of the early logos. I'll get with you, but we were kind of thinking it'd be cool to have one of the early logos from the city to put on the t-shirts this year.
Do you want the logo from when we were a town from 79 or just what
I don't
we
know.
had
I
when
think
we
we
were-
want to kind of look at them and just see maybe around that era. What?
Because the one from when we became a city is pretty well the one that we have, I think.
Yeah, I think Winnie Prey has got every single Woodland Hills Day t-shirt made into a quilt.
The tree one
Oh,
was,
yeah.
the tree
What?
one was when we were.
What
a
did you
town.
say, Chris?
I think Winnie Prey has a quilt with every single Woodland Hills Day t-shirt that's ever been printed. If
Yeah,
you need
she
it.
Oh,
It's really cool.
Yeah, she has a t-shirt quilt. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the first one was a bunch of trees that were there.
I have the tree one.
And I think that then when we became a city, we have a banner someplace of 40, when we celebrated the 40 years of being incorporated as a town / the city.
Here's the
We had
tree
that-
one.
We had that one up, a big banner about that a few years back. Yeah, that's the tree one.
Huh.
It might have got tossed.
I have a picture of the banner.
Doge.
Yeah.
I have a picture of I have a picture of one of the signs. Woodland Hills, a beautiful place to live with trees and.
We had a
Anyway.
big banner that hung on the front of the fire station to celebrate the 40 years of incorporation.
But I have the tree one. So anyway, I'll get with you, Jody, and we can see if there's anything else. We just wanted some options. We just thought it'd be fun to do something retro on the t-shirt to go with that. So I was looking for input on that.
Perfect.
Fun.
Okay. Councilmember Malkovich.
Mhm. As stated before, Public Works, we don't have any report on the committee. Community Development met on May 12th, a little earlier than they normally meet because of the holiday weekend. They're going through and discussing the goals, objectives, and the strategic for a draft section of the general plan. And so their plan is that they kind of take one, two, three, depending on how they get through it, of each meeting, and they're going to kind of go through those things, and then they'll present. And so they got through a couple on. It took them a little longer than they thought. So it was their goals and strategies, land use. Their number one goal: maintain and enhance our rural mountain community. And so then they kind of go in and what does that mean? And so there's a couple of things that they got from the survey as well as from the town hall meeting, and they're just kind of dissecting that along the way.
Perfect. Okay. Yes.
Carrie, question for you.
Mhm.
The work that the committee's doing is, and I don't know how much the balance is, money-wise and so forth. Is it planned to be enough as they give their product to us, Planning Commission, if we give some feedback with some recommended changes, that they're going to be in a position money-wise to go ahead and do that? Or is that not in the
I
works?
believe it is, but I'll double check because they bid on the project. When they bid on the whole project, it covered, this is how much money we have, and this is what we're expecting you to do. And this draft then is part of it, and then coming back to Planning Commission as a whole and bringing it to the council as a whole. So yeah, that's all worked into it, the cost. It's not a by hour.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's going to be money left where we can go back to them and say, we'd like to make these recommendations to what you've done, and they've got enough money left that they can go ahead and do that, incorporate that in towards the end of things. So that's,
Yeah, I believe that is the case.
Okay.
That's what it seems to me as we work with Daniel, that's what he's planning, is we're going through all of this draft, and then that would be given to Planning Commission. They would go through, update what they think, and given to council. We go through, if we need it updated, all along the way, there's an update or amend portion, but I'll double check with
Okay,
them just to
thank
be
you.
sure.
Okay, perfect. Number 7, budget retreat. Proposed amendments to the current fiscal year budget. Does anybody have any proposed
Today, our
amendments?
budget retreat, usually we have a little dinner on budget retreat night.
No, we
Huh.
already had it. It was last month. The budget retreat. Wasn't
Well, it
it?
says on here, number 7, budget
Yeah.
retreat. That's our
Budget
agenda item. I'm just
Yeah,
kind of.
It's originally scheduled for tonight. It's just April 22nd. 22nd was the presentation, but you asked a number of questions that evening, so it kind of probably felt like a budget retreat.
Sure did.
Sure
Yes, it
did.
did.
I felt good about it.
Hey, and
Yeah, there's a
Carrie,
couple-
let me just say, I am sorry. My intention was to have dinner brought in tonight. So, but for this, so I'll make it up to everybody. We'll do a dinner meeting that's not a budget retreat. So I do apologize for that.
Just a little joke because that was like our one day here we had dinner was
No, I agree.
When Wendy was the mayor, there was dinner all the time.
Yeah.
I know. If only I was as wealthy as Wendy, I would do that.
Goals there. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody has any proposed amendments then?
Can we talk about a couple things?
Please.
Yes, one of the things I would like to discuss is went through and got all the beginning balances. And I think that would be a good discussion here, especially when you guys are determining if we're going to hold a truth and taxation hearing or not. One thing we do need to do tonight, which is different in the past, is to vote on a tentative budget. So the budget that was presented to you guys a couple weeks ago, which I think was about an hour and a half presentation, was pretty in depth. But one thing that's come up since then is these beginning balances. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up on the screen. I'm assuming I can share. Yes.
Very
So here on the screen, I'm just going to go just kind of walk you through what these columns are. The left-hand side here is just kind of some of the accounts, the balance sheet titles. So cash receivables, accounts payable, and those kind of things. Then each of the columns, you got Fund 10, or the general account, Fund 41, which is where we've been saving for a fire truck, Fund 42, we've been saving for an ambulance. Whoops, don't want to be doing that. Fund 43, and so forth. So these just kind of correspond with our financials. So one thing I want to point out is there are some fund balances, which is a blessing to the city that we do have some money in savings. But if we don't kind of plan for the future here, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot. For example, I just want to explain one thing real quick on this fire budget. As of March 31st, we did have $144,850. We actually used that money last year to offset the general account. So we didn't have to do a truth and taxation last year. That account is going to be zero this year, except for the money that we are going to save this year. So I want to just bring that up, that the $144,850 actually goes into the general account. The EMS, $15,760, snow plowing, 25 grand, public works. Let's talk about public works for a second. $1.1 million, basically, with about 116,000 liabilities that we're still potentially going to be categorized against that this year and next year, which leaves us a balance in public works of 925,677. Ted, I don't know if you got a microphone, if you can jump in here, but if I remember right, we've got about a $1.5 to $1.8 million chunky projects needing to be done in the next year or two. We actually are to a better start than originally anticipated to get to that sorry, Ted, can you fill in the blank? What million?
You mean for the amount of projects we have out there, plus the helicopter?
Yeah, plus the helicopter that can lay top.
So we have about 700,000-ish, well, probably about 500 something thousand remaining on the well. That's got to be completed. And then we got another 500-ish.
Okay, wait. Let's just sorry. Let's just focus on the road study that was done. That talks about the 7-year project, the big one coming up soon.
Oh yeah. So on the pavement management project, we've got $500,000 under contract right now. We got $500,000 next year that had been planned for 2026, and then beyond 2027 and beyond was about 2.8 million.
Okay, so that's where I was trying to get at. Okay, the 2.8 million. So the 500,000 under contract this year is being covered by the general account already. That's in the budget, ready to go. The 500,000 for next year will be covered under the general account already in the budget that's being proposed next year. It's this 2.8 million that we need to start figuring out how to whittle this down. And I thought Ted was broken down a little bit more, but I could have been off on that.
Yeah, and you're right, Chris. We can break it down just looking at kind of locations of streets. And then part of that also ties into water. If we get any funding for water projects, then we include the street rebuild with the water project, and some of that 2.8 million goes away. So probably the money you're talking about, the 1.something million, was road projects beyond what would be included with a water project.
Okay. Yes. Okay, great. So let's look at this $925,000, $925,677. The proposal originally made with the tentative budget several weeks ago was not to do truth and taxation, to take roughly 500,000 from this particular 900,000 right here and be able to offset the general account. Looking at how we have a head start potentially on getting some road stuff done, the council might consider at least holding the holding the tax rate level. Meaning,
Sorry not to interrupt, but I think it was a general consensus of everybody in the room that we would prefer to have a slight increase rather than a huge one the following year.
yeah, I'm just thinking about the thing that was written as far as, and it's on the website, right? City Council, you guys were all shaking your heads and nodding. Yeah, we'd rather do it in smaller increments than just a big old boom. Here's a huge tax increase. I don't have those numbers right now to say, okay, if we keep the tax rate level, how much more is that going to bring? However.
Yeah, and Chris, let me just jump in here. Keeping it level will result in additional revenues. So where we don't have to actually, I mean, we're differing from the rate necessitating the truth in taxation hearing, but it would not be an actual increase in our current rate. It would just not be what the state is recommending. So I think that Janet, and I don't know if that addresses your concern or the council's concern generally, but I think that we can get where we need to be and have those additional revenues by just maintaining the current rate, which again would require that truth in taxation hearing, but would not actually be an increase in the rate. So does that, I mean, is that satisfactory to the council, or would you rather we propose an increase?
I do have a question. So we have done that several times where we've kept the rate the same, and which is a truth in taxation, and it does raise the amount of revenue we get, but maintaining the rate that we've had before. It seemed to me part of our discussion last time was the finance committee's concern that we're taking too much from our savings to pay for ongoing expenses, and that they didn't feel that that was a healthy way to go forward. And so I was looking to see if we had, if there were, if anything had been discussed, or what we could do so that we don't continue to use savings in a way that might not be sustainable in the future, not only having to raise the rates a lot in a few years, but, or even next year, but also I think our citizens want to make sure that we are able, if there is an emergency of some sort, that we have our funds there, that we're not just using them for whatever purpose that the budget needs. And so I guess that was my question: sustainability as we go forward, making sure that we have adequate rainy day fund, whatever we're calling that savings. And then if we're going to maintain the rate, does that get us to a place of revenue that is actually then sustainable for the whole year?
And let me chime in on this a little bit, if I may. So the one thing that I was led to understand when we attended the League convention in St. George is that the increase in value. So if we, I believe, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe that if we keep the rate level just by the increase in value in the homes, we will continue to increase those revenues. That in and of itself will allow us to your point, Carrie, set aside those sort of rainy day funds and to set aside some savings. Because I mean, obviously the market could take a different direction, but my concern with raising the rate is that I mean, that tends to lead to, I think, more of a creep up that I would rather not do. I mean, to me, if the taxes that residents are paying are proportionate to the value of their homes, you know, I mean, it's kind of a win-win. Your out-of-pocket expense is a little bit more when it comes to property taxes, but the value of your asset is also higher. But when we're increasing the rate, I have concerns that where does that lead us and where does it end?
I understand that, but we have these big roads projects coming up, and we can't, like what Carrie said, I mean, we can't just keep draining the savings to pay for them.
Yeah,
How do we,
this will get us more revenue. Keeping the rate level will get us more revenue.
but is it
I don't
enough?
think that's enough.
Yeah, I don't know if it's enough. I don't want to raise taxes. My taxes are horrific. I don't want to raise them. It affects
But we
me
know our
too.
residents want our roads finished, and so.
But we've put off
how
the
do we-
roads way too long, and now we're going to pay the price.
I mean, Chris, I don't know if it's premature to get a sense of what the added revenues would be by holding the rate level. But let's at least start with that and look at that, and then the council can make a decision. Well, that's sufficient for what we're looking to accomplish, or if it doesn't feel that's the case, then we can look at the other option.
Yeah, one thing to remember is if we do keep the rate level, it is a tax increase to the residents. So they will see an increase over last year. Just
I think
because the
we
state
understand that
is going to
part.
lower the rate this year potentially because the valuation of the homes went up.
Chris, I think we understand that part, keeping the rate level will increase their taxes, we'll get a little bit of more revenue, but I think what we're asking is that revenue sufficient to cover the cost that we're needing so that we don't have to keep dipping into that rainy day fund, our savings fund, for these expenses that we should be getting to the place of actually paying for them. We don't know. I mean, we can't anticipate the future on what we might need in terms of a savings account or a rainy day, an emergency fund, have you. But we want to also make sure that when we keep telling the residents, we've done this pavement management, we're on the way to fixing your roads. Oh, no, not this year, not this year, not this year. And then they're kind of going, well, what are you doing? And so it seems to me that citizens are asking us to actually provide the services they want, not increase their taxes, horrifically, but a modest increase to say this is going to go to roads, maybe a balance there that we don't keep looking to our reserves for ongoing expenses.
And you,
But if you want to raise the rate, I mean, where do you stop? I mean, because I do think that if we tie it more to the value of the homes and keep the rate flat, then I just don't know. I mean, I don't know if the council wants to continue to incrementally increase the rate, because if it just seems to me that the optics of that is bad, because in my mind, it's much more palatable to say that we're just keeping the rate the same. There will be an added increase in the taxes just because the value of your asset has gone up.
Right.
But if we've got a plan where we're going to increase the rate every year, then that we could be.
That's
I mean,
not what,
I don't know where it stops.
That's what we're saying.
that's
I
not what
think.
we're saying at all, though.
Yeah,
We're saying that we're asking because when we talked about the budget a few weeks ago with Chris and did the hour and a half, Chris said we can pay for this year, we can pay for next year, but after that, he doesn't know.
Yeah, and if we're
That's
and
what
if,
we
if
were
we're
told.
increasing it, if I mean none of us want to increase, but we also want to provide the services. So we're not saying an exorbitant amount, but a 1 to 2% increase is a lot better than doing a 12% in 2 years because we've run out of all of our savings that we've used for ongoing services. And so I guess I would like to know is if this, if we're keeping the rate the same and getting in an increase in revenue, how much is that? And does it really satisfy the needs that we have
Is it
for the
enough?
projects that we are anticipating doing?
Yeah, I don't think that any of us are on different pages as far as that goes. I mean, the last thing I want to do is torpedo the great strides we've made, especially in our public works department. I mean, that's something where I have no interest in altering the momentum on that at all. So, but I can see your point. I mean, we don't know what kind of dollars we're talking about, if it's enough. And so, Chris, I think that's going to be where we need to probably get some hard information that we can provide. Like, if we keep the rate level, this is the amount of additional revenue that we will be able to stow away, and maybe have a few scenarios where we've got marginal increases in the rate that we can offer some different proposals. So is that something that you can put together quickly, or what kind of timeline do you need for something like that?
So safely, let's use the word safely instead of quickly. Within the next 3 weeks, I should have the numbers from the state of Utah through Utah County. At that point, my the website will be opened up where at this point we can do it live together, or I can do numbers on the side. We can say, okay, if we change it by 3%, what's it going to look like to roughly to the residents, and what's it going to bring into this to the city? Right now, I was just trying to log in right now. I couldn't get into it. But there is a point coming up here in the next 3 weeks that we'll be able to get those numbers way better for you guys. Now, if we look at this $925,000 and we say we want to have a savings, we're looking at more than So Ted, let's just use round numbers. Let's say we need $1.5 million in 2027's fiscal year to be able to do this next set of road improvements that is on the pavement management plan. So that means we need to raise, roughly $500,000 over the next 2 years, or $500,000 next year, $500,000 the year after, to be able to cover that. But at that point, we're wiping the savings. A good chunk of the savings gone just to keep up with the pavement management plan, and won't have
I
much.
agree with that.
That's why we don't want to do that, because, by law, we can keep 25% of our annual budget in our rainy day fund. We usually don't keep that much, but I don't think we should whittle it down to nothing. I think we need to have it healthy, because there could be, we could have any sort of emergency come up, and we need to be prepared.
And maybe I ought to caveat this by saying, when I say so 2.8 million was planned in pavement projects after next year. And now some of those, 1 million of those are tied to water projects, if we can get funding for water projects, because we need also water line. About 1.8 would be, I think was the number, 1.5, 1.8 tied to probably just road projects we can do. What I think there's got to be is a balance, right? It doesn't mean we have to do a $1.8 million project that very next year. We can go, some of these roads are so far gone, an extra year or two is not going to matter a whole lot to the road. And we can go in, so I think there's got to be balance, because when you're looking at, I think it's a whole different discussion when you look at numbers. Now, this is kind of more the resident side of me. If I hear from my property taxes are going up 10%, even if the city holds it level, versus they're going to go up 0.5% if the city holds their level, that's a whole different discussion as a resident, right? I can live with 0.5% increase or something like that. 10%, I'm going to say, wait a minute, city, this is killing me.
Right.
So I
don't
think
think
what
we
we've got to have is, back to Chris's point, I think some of these numbers will help figure out, because if the revenue can bring us to a discussion that says, okay, we can find a balance here, maybe it's a 1 or 2% increase by holding it level, or a 3% increase, and maybe we spread these projects out over an extra year or two so we don't lose all of our rainy day fund. There's some flexibility there. So I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, I don't think there's a hard commitment to have to say we got to spend 1.8 million in 3 years. So I think there's got to be a balance between what we can save, what our taxes look like, and how we tackle the road projects over the next 7-8 years. So, because like I said, I think it's a whole different discussion until we know what holding the tax rate level looks like to the city. I think it's almost a little hard to hold that discussion as far as do we raise or not, right? Because it's a whole different discussion. Like I said, if the personal pocketbook impact is 1% versus 10%.
And I noticed that we have on there from April 9th was the finance committee meeting, on budget, but since there's been some other changes, is there a possibility of the finance committee looking at it again? Now that we've made some adjustments, just to get their input on it, because they're the ones that kind of brought it to our attention of the, dipping into the savings for so much. I think I would appreciate their input again.
I want to.
Oh, sorry, Dor.
I've been holding back. I have a problem with the city having very much in a savings account. I know that sounds anti-good planning, but if you pay for roads with a savings account, the current residents aren't participating. That savings account is put in by previous residents in years past. And that bugs me. So I like having a little in savings, but I do have a problem using savings for some of our projects, because it's not the current residents that put that savings in there. So I have a problem with that. So
maybe a lot of our residents have lived here for 20+ years.
well, there aren't all of them though. There are some that are just moving in using the roads that did not put $1 in that savings.
Well, and the people before did it the same, right? So
Well,
it's a pay it forward type thing.
So as our savings grow, I have a problem.
Well, you can only keep 25% of your budget,
Well,
so you can't go over that.
Well,
That's only the general account, though. We're moving money into public.
Hmm.
we've
we're
got
moving
savings.
public works.
So just consider that
Well,
when
capital
you're
projects
when
are
you're talking
different.
about paying for roads. I'd like the current people to pay for the roads.
That would be
So that
the
was-
fee that they talked about at the legislature is passed some things like that, and we talked about it at the league meetings. Is the idea of a road fee, which would be separate and different from taxing, and that would be dedicated just to roads based on what's in front of your house. And there's a formula that goes into that, which we would have to do a lot of work to get to that place. But that's the only way to actually have the
Or-
current people using it.
Or not put too much in savings.
it.
That's my view.
Sherry?
I'd ask the
You gotta hold it.
I'd ask you to consider, you're talking about property taxes. As a citizen, I pay more than just property taxes. I just did some quick figures here. I'm rounding off my service fees for water and sewer to $200 a month. My property taxes to $17,000. Divide the two by each other, and that's an 11% increase. And what Carrie just said about roads, that's what just went through my mind. Next thing I'm going to hear from the city is, oh, you have to pay a road service fee. That's increasing what comes out of my pocket. So it is not just property taxes. It's a lot more than that.
And remember, your property tax doesn't just pay for our city. You're paying for 80% of that goes to the schools, which, to your point, Doral, is how many of us don't have kids in school anymore, and yet we still pay our 80% to the school district for our schools because it's a benefit to society, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, so when we look at our property tax and recognizing that we're getting a very small sliver of what everybody pays, the county gets their share, all the other fees, dispatch is one of the ones that gets fees from our property taxes, and then schools, it's divided quite a bit. And so we get little teeny bits that can go to certain things. And as a city that doesn't have any other revenue, it's our main revenue source, we all moved up here knowing that that was our revenue source, and not that we're going to keep doing some sort of big jump, but we also have to recognize that we have services that we not only have decided that this is what our citizens want, roads, snow removal, that's not required by any statute anywhere, but we do it, right? We pay for that service. We pay for our fire department to have the latest tools. We could just contract with another city, but we don't. We said this is something we need. Same with law enforcement, same with other things. And roads are one of the things that people really appreciate, and we haven't been keeping up on those. The pavement management plan is giving us a boost to say, hey, this is a reality now. We have a path forward that's going to make people feel good about our roads, safe, effective, long-term, health of our roads, because we have a plan now. It's not just, oh, fix a crack here and a hole there. This is a plan, a real plan that's a benefit to everyone. So I just think that we should really take that into consideration. I don't think anyone wants to have a big jump in any property tax ever, but being mindful of what our needs are and maybe the need for a small increase, depending on what the real revenue is of maintaining the rate.
I think we just need to wait and see the numbers, Chris.
Chris, do you by chance know what the county breakdown is there from our property tax? Where does everything go?
I don't have that. I was just actually just trying to look up a few right now, and I'm not quick enough on it to see how much goes to NEBO and how much goes to the city or CUP or whatever is getting charged on there now. One thing back with what Doral brought up is, some have had the philosophy like Doral's talking about, and the way to mitigate that is through debt financing and to go out and get loans so the current residents pay the loan back versus going through the savings account. And so that's one way to do what Doral said.
Gives us cheaper rates on that road, right? We can save $10 for, a 1 square foot piece of asphalt now, but if we save for that in 5 years, we need to save 15, right, for that 1 square foot or whatever the numbers may be.
I always remind people too, because I used to do a lot of this funding stuff for communities before I came here, that construction grows at an interest rate of between 5 and 10% typically. and interest rates now, you can get loans sometimes from the state for less than 5. So if you borrow the money now and then pay back over time, you're actually getting a good interest rate, but you're saving, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of that loan by doing the construction early. So I'm a fan of especially communities, maybe not my personal finance, but of financing things and paying back the financing. That way you don't have to chew up your savings either. So you've got a rainy day fund as well, and you're paying back your debt service through your general obligation bonds or your water rate bonds or stuff like that. So,
And
I think that's always a smart way for communities to look at projects, because in the long run, you're going to save money and not lose your savings.
Thank you. What does our schedule look like, Chris, from a standpoint of in 3 weeks, we get those rates, right? So that means in 2 council meetings, you'll be able to tell us what those numbers look like. Will we still have enough time to be able to schedule a truth and taxation if needed or not? From a calendar standpoint, what are our options?
I think it'd be easier today to have a vote that you want to do a truth and taxation. Let's get it scheduled, because we'll be fighting against other cities and other. So if there's 5 items on everybody's tax bill, Nebo, CUP, Woodland Hills, we all can't have a truth and taxation hearing the same night. So the first one to the table gets the preferred date. You can always back out. You don't
Well,
have to
even
do
if
it.
we hold it level, you said we'd have to have one. So we might as well
Correct.
schedule.
Yeah.
Let's schedule it.
It is still increasing. I put the calendar
It's
up here because
August, so
June 24th is the public hearing on the fiscal 26 budget. If we vote on this tentative budget today, we don't have to hold that, because you are going to hold a truth and taxation, which means sometime in August, we would have to hold a fiscal year 26 budget hearing. But by June 24th and before, I should have those numbers and be able to get some definitive numbers to you guys.
now I know you have to schedule that truth and taxation with the county. You put in the date. Could we tentatively plan that for our second council meeting in August, the 26th? Because people are back in school by then, and they're more likely to be able to attend. If
I
they,
need to double check those changes made, and I believe they did take it through the end of August, but I want to double check on that for sure.
okay, because that's our second meeting. Right, and
So-
also, but just to keep it consistent with, this is the day we meet, and citizens know we meet the 2nd and the 4th. Mm.
I can't.
Yeah, I think school starts again on the 13th or
Uh,
14th, so yeah,
Yeah, Jody, Chris can't hear you.
but
The recorder doesn't appreciate it if you don't talk into the mic. So I've been told.
Ted's hogging it.
Okay, so
We should-
what are your thoughts there, Chris? Should we plan on a potential looking at, Jody was saying that potentially even August 12th? So the first council meeting in August for that truth and taxation. Is that a true
We-
representation of what you said, Jody?
We can try, if it hasn't been taken yet, which I don't know if anybody else is as quick as we are at this point. We could try August 12th, August 5th, August 19th, or August 26th if you want to keep it on Tuesday night. I believe there's some other city meetings, those off nights. So that
yeah,
might be
I
a
think I would rather keep it on our council night if possible, just because our residents know that night is council night. And it's transparent that way that we are meeting. I would prefer the 26th if
Got
it
some
works.
primary election stuff coming up in August and things like that. That's the only reason why.
So just, our preferences, see what you can do.
Well,
right?
we gotta vote on a date here. I believe that has to
Oh.
be in.
I may,
minutes.
yeah, well, we can't make a motion. It's not on the thing, but I would say the 26th would be best, I would say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to vote. I just need to get a consensus from you guys, because.
Just because the 12th is the night before school starts. I just looked it up. And I think parents are busy getting their kids ready and they're, fussing out that last minute stuff to get them back into school the next morning. I would prefer the 26th. If
So
it's,
if it's available, we could do it. I'll put the 26th down if you guys are okay. If not, then shoot for the 12th.
yeah.
That sounds good to
That
me.
works.
Okay, so as far as the schedule that I've got up on the screen here, we still have June 10th. I wouldn't suspect the numbers will be in by then, but if it does, maybe we could spend some time that meeting and you guys can get a jump on it. Or we just wait till the 24th. And frankly, at this point, if we're gonna hold a truth and taxation hearing, we really don't need to jump on this in June. You can do it. We can do it in the July meeting also.
Yeah, but if the numbers are available in June, I'd like to get it
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Me too.
And I'd love to be able to present to that truth and taxation the two options, right? And show that projection into the future and let people in the community say, we like option A, keep it steady, or we like option B, let's keep the rainy day fund intact and let's raise it so that we can cover the needs versus us showing up and saying, here's what we've decided. I like the option to
Yeah.
So
present
let's
to.
do this.
And can we get
Um,
the committee to look at the options?
They're scheduled. Chris, we have the finance committee meeting again, don't we?
Everything's coming up.
It's coming up. It's like next week.
Yeah, but he's not going to have the numbers before that.
We can,
But I'd like to know, I'd like to have their input as well. I trust Ted, but I really also like to have their
Yeah,
input
I would
on
too.
on the loan side of things and whether we keep our rainy day funds and not save up for these projects, if that's
Well,
economically.
but it's two different things. So the rainy day fund is really for an emergency. That's the 25. And then the other ones, the projects are the capital fund. So
I
it's
understand.
separate.
But
So I think that we need to
but we're
make
kinda-
sure that we're talking
but
to
we're-
the residents about that we're saving, meaning not saving for our project. That's the capital, but we're actually the
Yeah, but
rainy
we're
day
talking-
savings.
We're just talking semantics right
Right,
here.
right.
I'm just saying that we
Just
take
so they
what
know.
Doral said and we say, okay, these are rainy day funds that we're not going to deplete these for projects. These are what we're going to save for emergencies because that's what it's there for. And then we're either going to save for projects this way or we're going to take loans out and get the opinions of
Yeah.
our finance committee because they're really good at that.
They are.
Ted, so with respect to the sorts of things that, I mean, so if we do, that the finance committee recommends, the council approves a finance driven approach to things like roads and water, what would I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but like, what would we need an emergency fund for? I mean, because if the two major pieces that normally require emergency funding are being addressed by
We
debt
hadn't-
servicing, then I think that, but I just think that if we're going to save money, obviously you can't predict what the emergencies are going to be, but I'm just curious if you have any sense as to historically what our emergencies have been and what you might anticipate them being going forward. And I mean, it seems like to me, it's always a PRV or, something to do with our water system. I can't think of any emergency scenario that's involved anything.
I don't think
that's-
that's our focus.
And that's
though.
generally true on emergency projects. Like, for example, the Maple Canyon well, that one came up
Yeah.
as an emergency project's about $250,000. Our well that broke down last summer, to replace that motor was about $70,000. So stuff like that, mostly to do with our water system. It's always nice to have so there's two things to think of when you're thinking of funding. You call it a rainy day or an emergency fund. One is if, for example, the well fails completely and you have to spend, $500,000 fixing it. That's always nice to have there. The chance of that happening is probably rare, but it could happen. But also, it's also more than just an emergency. I like to think of sometimes these funds also as leverage to get financing. So you can sometimes use these funds because you're not always going to get 100% financed project, right? You're going to get maybe 80% of a project finance. So if you've got some savings there, you can use to leverage that funding. That's always helpful too. So I think it's kind of a dual purpose. The savings is maybe some leverage money and then also some emergency money.
But we have
Okay,
to remember on
thanks.
the general accounts, we can only save 25%. Everything in the capital projects, we have identified projects or what we're doing for. We have to be careful that we're not charging higher property taxes to put money away for a rainy day when what we're doing is we're kind
Right.
of slogging
Mayor,
money
but
away.
we
that's
have
not what-
something.
That's not what we're talking about either.
Mayor,
Well, you get keep saying rainy day. Let's Because we could save up $1 million or $2 million for this road project. I think we're legit on doing that. But if we're saving it for a future project, non-water,
Be able
we
to
want
be
to be
paid.
careful.
Ben, what were you saying?
I was wondering if you were trying to say something there.
Oh, no, I was just listening. Thanks, though.
Perfect. And please remember, you guys, that Jody's trying to keep all of our conversations straight here, so we can go one at a time. That'd be helpful. Okay, so it sounds like we are looking at, we've got the tentative dates for truth and taxation, correct, Chris? You've got the prioritization there pending on availability with other schedules around the county. I think you're going to get those numbers. That'll help us be able to clearly make a decision instead of us playing the hypothetical game. Being able to decide on pure actual numbers, I think will help us out a lot. Within that scope, does anybody else have any thoughts, feelings, emotions,
There's
tears?
one more decision we're gonna have to make, but not tonight. And that is we're gonna have to, by vote, you're gonna have to set a rate. We won't have the numbers tonight. But if you're gonna do the two scenarios, keep it level or go above, I would recommend taking the rate even a little bit higher. You can never go above in the truth and taxation, but you can come down.
Okay.
Right.
Well, and I think that'll be part of that double option
Yeah.
proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. We don't have an upcoming city council meeting agenda item there. So I guess we will go to break unless I'm skipping anything here. No? Okay. Then let's take a the mayor's so much better at this.
Take a little break.
Little
5
break.
minutes.
5 minutes? Okay.
7:35. I mean 38.
Perfect. 7:38. We'll be back. Is that up to your standards there, Mayor?
Excellently done.
Perfect.